Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Game and Compute. We're still talking about quiet quitting. And, one thing that comes to mind is quiet quitting as an employee and quiet quitting as the owner of a company. So, is quiet quitting considered lazy? Is it lazy? Is it wrong? Is it a gray area? So quiet quitting, basically just doing what the demands of the job are as it's laid out in your contract without going above and beyond. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that quiet quitting is wrong or immoral or unethical or lazy or negative. I would say if a company has a system in place to describe what's the bare minimum so that you're not going to get reprimanded, so that you're not going to get any form of disciplinary action against you, what's expected of you, that's the basic standard, right? And if an employer expects the employees to go above that amount, in a way, I do like, at least how my site does it, how you kind of know what the numbers look like. Now, I've mentioned a little bit before, my productivity does not change. It's still a certain percentage per, on average per week. So there's a little wiggle room, right? It's like you can still be low on productivity a few days out of the week, and make up for it. But that's just assuming you can be low a couple days and make up on it. That's not impossible to do. One thing that is something I appreciate is the way they kind of lay out, what's the minimum expectation, and then what it looks like when you're going above that, and what's the level that they're willing to incentivize. So we have 2 points that can be incentivized. One of them is basically when you get a caseload higher than what's expected at the minimum and maintain that caseload for a quarter period of time, so 3 months consecutively. And then another version of that is a second incentive where it's again based on having a higher amount of clients even compared to that first incentivized level. And so you can have up to 2 levels of incentive payments quarterly. One is based on your caseload being a certain amount of members, clients. Another is based on your on adding each individual person to that caseload. to get an incentive bonus per person. Now, this automatically makes it so that your productivity is going to be higher because you're still providing services per client per month. So if you're at the minimum versus we do have a maximum. So if you're at the minimum, then basically you just have to try not to run out of steam. So that's, that's just kind of how it is, and if the company needs more, wants more, that's kind of how they've laid it out for us. So we know kind of when we're going above and beyond and when we're going above and beyond. And we are incentivized for it. Now, incentives, we usually need an incentive to match the amount of effort, right? That's kind of the goal, is you can't just have an incentive of any old kind. Like if I'm going to get a snack-sized bag of Doritos for meeting productivity as well as going above and beyond, that's not worth my time and effort and energy. But there's a certain amount of maybe gift incentive, like an item or a certain maybe not even a gift, but like for us it's a financial incentive. There's a certain amount of just what would be considered worth it, not everything is considered worth it every time. And so that's something to take into consideration, is that not every single thing is going to be worth, like not every incentive is going to be worth the amount that you put in, the amount of work that you put in. I feel like, they should pay us more for the incentive. I think the incentive shouldn't be quarterly. I think it should be more than quarterly. But it's only quarterly. So I feel like, we need a better incentive, but others might not fully agree with my thoughts on things. Others might feel that the incentive is fair. Now I know how much drain this job kind of takes on me. For me, I consider the amount of emotional drain and time drain and energy drain and intellectual drain to be worth a very high amount of money for me. The reason why I say this personally for myself is because I realize that it cuts into other things. If I want to socialize, hang out with friends, hang out with family, do certain things, I feel like I don't really get to do those certain things when I'm drained from work. And so for me, it actually makes more sense to be not overly like worked for a financial incentive that's not a whole lot of money, if it's still going to contribute to more stress and less goals being met in my life outside of the work day and outside of my work itself. So that's kind of how I see it. But to me, that's kind of what it looks like when you're saying like, just talking about, quiet quitting, and if there's an incentive to kind of work past quiet quitting, that's kind of how I see it. Not everything can be resolved by a financial number. For some people it's worth it, for some people it's not. And for me it's like, well, sometimes it's not worth it. Like I saw someone who I was previously working with, their caseload was like half of mine. And I was like, how nice, that must be to have a caseload that's like half, and, I didn't want to have a higher load. I didn't want to have a low load either, but I didn't want to have a higher load than what I already have. And then I had to take on more of their people. When they left, they added more of their clients onto my list. So that was a big drain, as well, because some of the needs were pretty intensive and I was already burning out. So, that's kind of one way to look at it. It's kind of like, okay, if there's an incentive, what are you getting out of the incentive? Is the incentive equal to the amount of effort? At the moment for myself, no, the incentive is not. Now, would there be a number? I already talked about my minimal pay rate number. That's $40 an hour. I need to be able to afford to independently live where I want, how I want. So if a job doesn't pay that and I can't get to that amount even with the incentive, then to me it doesn't matter how little or how much work I'm doing. To me, it's not fully worth it. That's kind of my own personal opinion at this point in time. So I don't know, other people think differently about things, but yeah, I would say the part where people go above and beyond and aren't practicing quiet quitting, a lot of times, you can still look at people who might be quiet quitting and see why, that's not lazy, that's not unethical. They're at the bar that has been set. I think in our society we're taught different things. You're taught in school, you want the A is considered a good grade. A C is not considered a good grade, even though it's considered labeled average. You don't see a C as a good grade, right? So I would say that with work too. Doing the expectation is not considered as doing really good hard work, but it's also not considered lazy. It's just you're not doing more to get the higher level. Kind of trying to like call it like it is, but that's kind of all I have to say about that example, and thanks for listening.